Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks for inviting me.
So this, in terms of the pantheon of fines that have been doled out by the Commission in its fairly short history, actually, where does it fall?
This is the largest fine that the Commission has had for a violation of the Public Officers Law.
Is it the maximum that you're able to seek?
No, it's not. The maximum we calculated to be $96,325.
For Yankees tickets?
For each violation of the gift ban, or 2 violations of the gift ban, is $40,000 plus the value of the tickets, which was $2,125.
He should have just paid him.
And he should have done a lot of things differently.
Yes, he should have. It's true.
And then the violation of the Code of Ethics, one provision has a penalty of $10,000 maximum.
And in terms of, I mean, we've seen some pretty strong statements from the good government groups that have come out today in response to this announcement. In terms of the severity of what you've, not the fine monetarily speaking, but the severity of the action that led to the fine, where do you believe that it falls?
Well, I don't know that's an easy question to answer. I would say this. You have to view the whole thing together in context. And what happened here was that the government, first of all, he didn't just accept a gift, he solicited a gift. And the Commission has said in advisory opinions that it can't imagine the circumstances under which it's appropriate for a public official to solicit a gift as opposed to accepting a gift. So that's number one. Number two is, when faced with the accusation, the governor lied about it. He made up a story that wasn't truthful, at least that's what the Commission found. And thirdly, he is the chief executive of the state of New York, and setting the tone at the top is critical in terms of establishing for all state employees and the legislature and others who are bound by these same rules that these things have to be taken seriously and matter.
Okay, let's turn this around, though. I mean, there has been, this has been going on for some time. This is a culmination of something that's been going on for a while, and we should also note that there's a parallel investigation now. There was the Attorney General, Andrew Cuomo, who took this up. Then he decided to, for reasons of potential conflict, because he thought that he might actually run against David Paterson in a primary, gave it to Chief Judge Judith Kaye, the former Chief Judge. She issued a report. That report was then handed over to the Albany District Attorney, and we're still waiting for him to act. So that's where that is on that track. In terms of the Yankees tickets, though, people have been talking about it for a while. And people say, let's argue Rudy Giuliani. He went to a lot of Yankees games all the time. Is it not appropriate to have the governor of the state of New York attend a Yankees game?
Well, first of all, Rudy Giuliani is not, when he was governor, was not somebody that was within the jurisdiction of
mayor. When he was mayor,
when he was
yes,
mayor,
I
rather,
understand. Yep.
was not somebody within our jurisdiction. So we don't have specific information on the record. But anecdotally, my understanding is that he paid for his tickets.
So it would have been okay for David Paterson to go and pay for whatever he wants, like any private citizen, and that's appropriate.
Absolutely.
It also would have been okay, you determined, had he actually really been there in a public capacity. For example, if he was just merely announced from the stand?
I don't know where the line is, but one of the things the Commission noted in its decision was that he didn't participate in any ceremonial capacity in the game, and in fact, when some public officials were announced by the public address announcer before the game, his name was not announced.
So, though it seems to be sort of, I don't want to make light of it, because obviously speaking, when you lie under oath, it's a problem, and you, like you say, you set the tone for the entire administration. You are the chief executive, et cetera. But to get brought down as something as sort of quotidian, if you will, of Yankees tickets is not the kind of public corruption that we saw from perhaps that Pedro Espada has been accused of, for example, or Vincent Leibel, 2 recent senators who are indicted on federal corruption charges.
Well, we don't have jurisdiction over the legislature,
yes, I am
our commission. There's a debate about that, but as things currently stand, we don't. So we deal with the people who are within our jurisdiction, and when you're the chief executive, I think it's reasonable to expect that you're going to follow the law and not do what the governor did in this case.
There have been, and you've not heard a response from him, is that correct?
That's correct.
So he's not, this is, in your opinion, this is over. He's supposed to cut you a check, and that's the end of that.
That's correct. From the Commission's perspective, this was the final decision for us, and now the only thing left from our perspective is the collection of the penalty.
But he can appeal it.
He can file what's called an Article 78 proceeding. That's correct.
And if he doesn't actually pay, you have some recourse.
That's correct. I frankly don't really want to spend a lot of time on that because I'm not expecting for it to get to that point. But yes, under the state's law, when somebody owes somebody money, there are mechanisms available if they don't pay voluntarily, and those mechanisms are available to the commission.
Like garnishing their wages and taking their property,
That's
et cetera.
correct.
Even if that person is no longer in office, you don't have jurisdictions over them anymore after they're
Well,
gone.
that's not entirely correct. First of all, with respect to this, we would continue to have jurisdiction, at least to the extent of collecting our penalty. But under an amendment to the law that was passed a few years ago, if somebody commits a violation of the public officers law while they're in state office, and we notify them by sending what we call a 15-day letter, within a year after they leave state service, we can adjudicate that matter.
There's been a lot of talk up to this point, actually really ever since Eliot Spitzer combined the ethics and lobbying commissions to make one Uber commission. Now, the outgoing chairman, Michael Cherkasky, has some thoughts about that. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about breaking it back up into two separate entities.
There was a bill that the governor vetoed that would have done that, and we said then, and I still think, that it was a bad idea to break up back to its former components. I think that this case shows that the process on our side works. We identified a potential violation. We went through our process, which is, the legal and due process is not quick, but it's fair, and we went through that process and came to a result that we think is the commission is appropriate in this case. So
right.
I would say that our process worked, and there is nothing from this experience that would lead me to believe that it would be better to break up the two commissions. Plus, I can tell you that there are cases where there's a real advantage to having both sides of the house, so to speak, within one agency, so you don't have potentially differing opinions on the same law, as has happened between us and the Legislative Ethics Commission, for example.
Yeah, this has gone on for almost a year, is that correct?
Well, the game was in October of 2009.
Right, but the probe didn't start immediately.
We sent our 15-day letter. I think the game, if memory serves, was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and we sent the 15-day letter that Friday, so pretty soon after.
Now, this isn't the only, and actually also, I mean, look, he's halfway out the door, and this is certainly something that he's going to be dealing with and we'll be following, but this isn't the only thing that you guys have been up to of late. You also had an interesting opinion that you issued recently regarding employees who are looking for new jobs who are going to be let go. Mm-hmm. Could you explain what the thinking was on that?
Sure. Several years ago, in 2006, the Commission issued an advisory opinion to state employees that said, look, we recognize that you may be looking for a job outside of state government, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to take steps to make sure that there's not a conflict or the appearance of a conflict between what you're doing in your state job and looking for a job,
sure.
Because it's just, as the Commission said, fraught with potential problems. So what the Commission said is we're going to require that you, if there's a company that you've been dealing with in your state capacity that you might want to work for, or comes to you and suggests that maybe they would like to hire you, you have to recuse yourself. In other words, tell your boss that this has happened or that you want to pursue this. Recuse yourself for 30 days, so not have anything to do with them for 30 days. And then if you still want to have employment discussions with them, you can. Recently, with the layoff situation, it became apparent that people were getting less than 30 days notice of their impending layoff, and so requiring them to recuse wasn't practical. They wouldn't be able to look for a job until after they really had to make some pretty hard decisions about should I accept a bump to a different job,
right.
Which they can do under civil service, or should I accept a transfer to another region, which they can do under certain circumstances, or should I accept a potential or seek if there's other opportunities. So the Commission said under those circumstances, which weren't at all contemplated in 2006, as long as they recuse now and say we're not going to have anything to do with that company or that person, they can immediately begin to have those kind of conversations.
But on the flip side, however, you have also determined that when a person gets laid off, specifically former DEC Commissioner Pete Granis, that they still have some requirements in terms of what they are and are not allowed to do, even though they were fired.
That's correct. Because there's a difference in the statute. The statute recognizes this difference. For example, employees who are laid off because of the fiscal crisis are exempt from what we call the 2-year
Right,
bar.
right.
Whereas if you're laid off if you're let go for any other reason, you're not exempt from the 2-year bar. So the law recognizes that these are, it's a harsh result for these people who are being let go because of the fiscal circumstances, and we have to have a rule that recognizes that and deals fairly with these people.
Yeah, and we'll be tracking it also because it's a lot of people looking for work. In the meantime,
from what I've read, about 1,000 people statewide, and from what I've heard from Bob Megna about the projections for the budget for the future, there may be more.
There may be. I want to thank you very much for coming in and joining us.
Thank you for having me.